Rami Khouri. He's a senior fellow at Harvard's Kennedy School and a former news editor in both Jordan and Lebanon. He's coming to us today, though, live from New York. Rami, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
So we have been following this story so closely. I know you have as well. Can I get your take on what we heard from the Crown Prince, saying that he is outraged, this was a heinous crime? What do you make of that?
Well, I think they're trying to minimize the damage that they've already suffered in Saudi Arabia, which is significant. And he personally has been the target of much of the criticism from around the world. The problem he has is that as he starts to speak out, he only seems to make things worse. And this is a structural problem that the Saudis have had since the beginning of this issue about 3 weeks ago, which is that they keep coming up with different stories, different reasons. Some of them are proven false by evidence that comes out. And the overwhelming majority of people around the world, except for a few countries who are dependent on the Saudis for money, the overwhelming majority of the world doesn't believe him. And this is his dilemma. He's got to show facts. He's got to come up with evidence to clearly back his view that he knew nothing about it, he had nothing to do with it, and some people in the system did it, and it was something that he's totally against. He doesn't have any evidence yet on the table to support that point, and that's his real dilemma.
In light of the fact that this story has been playing out for 3 weeks, that business conference, of course, really ended up being a bit of an embarrassment for the Saudis because a lot of people are not there. And the story continues to generate headlines, bad optics for the Saudis. Why not come out with some sort of evidence, Rami, and sort of say, look, I wasn't involved. I didn't know. This was a rogue operator. This was an intelligence officer who went too far without my authorization. Why not do that? Why not go public with that?
That's what a rational person would do, but political leaders and politicians and leaders of Arab countries often don't always act rationally. They act in the instinct of self-preservation. So the assumption is that there was something going on in the Saudi leadership system linked to this issue. They knew about it, or people who worked for them did it. Something in there is causing them not to release any of their evidence. They said 2.5 weeks ago that they're going to work closely with the Turks, and that didn't happen for quite some time. And it's not clear that it's happening now even. So that's why people remain suspicious. But they have to assume they're innocent till proven guilty, but they're certainly not indicating much that supports their innocence.
We know there has been a regional rivalry between Turkey and Saudi Arabia going back many, many years. You are familiar with it, having worked in the region. And so to a certain extent, I guess it's in Turkey's interests, Rami, to keep this story in the headlines, to put pressure on Saudi Arabia and increase Turkish influence and power in the region. There's also the argument that the Saudis are used to being able to buy their way out of problems. And we've heard that they have offered all sorts of financial incentives to Turkey, the economy there not doing well, in order to get the Turks to move on past this. What do you make of that?
We've heard a lot of stories recently that the Saudis offered the Turks many, many tens of billions of dollars, ending the blockade of Qatar and doing other things that the Turks want in return for the Turks turning off the tap of releasing the bits of evidence they've been releasing. But these are all unconfirmed stories. The Saudis historically have two great sources of power. One is the enormous amount of money that they have and use to develop friendships and alliances, and the other is their moral authority as guardians of the two holiest places for Muslims. And those are two real sources of power, but neither of them are effective in this situation, because if this person was killed in the Saudi consulate and his body was dismembered, this is going to be terribly, terribly insulting to ordinary, decent Muslims all over the world to desecrate a body of this in this way. And money will not buy innocence. If there is any suspicion of guilt, that has to be removed by facts, and money cannot provide those facts. So they're in a really tough situation, and it's too early to know exactly what's going to happen. But Mohammed bin Salman is in a really difficult situation. He's losing credibility. We don't know what his standing is within the country, other than that his father is standing by him for the moment. But there's probably waves of questioning and discussion going on within Saudi Arabia. But we don't know anything about this because people are not allowed to express their views in public there.
Wonderful conversation, Rami, and thank you for taking the time to join us here on CTV in Canada.
Thank you, and merci.